Welcome to Clout 941. I'm Ron Filipkowski, your host. This is Sarasota's only live television show on politics and local issues. Tonight we're going to tackle a controversial topic, which is homeowners insurance primarily, or property insurance policy, and we have a great guest to do that. But first, our commentary on the news. We now have a race in the state house in the north part of Sarasota. Ray Pilon has tossed his hat into the ring to take on State Representative Keith Fitzgerald. As many of you know, Keith Fitzgerald, Laura Benson ran against him twice and narrowly lost the last two elections. And now it's Ray Pilon's turn, former county commissioner, former sheriff candidate, was actually endorsed by the Herald Tribune when he ran for sheriff in 2004 and narrowly lost to Bill Balkwell. And Ray Pilon is going to be a formidable candidate. He's a good fundraiser. He's a popular guy, and we're going to try to get him on the show. And Keith Fitzgerald has got his hands full with Ray. Next, it'll be interesting also to see what the Herald Tribune does in that race. They love Keith Fitzgerald. We expect him to endorse him, but they have always in the past endorsed Ray whenever he's run for anything, so we'll see where they come down. Next in the news, the government these days is going crazy for cash. They can't. The government's insatiable appetite for money, the taxpayer pool is dried up for them, and so they're looking for other ways to find money. And one of the latest ideas is more gambling for the kids. Of course, as Charlie Crist said, we need to expand legalized gambling in Florida, and we've got to do it for the kids, because the increased taxpayer money that we'll receive from more gambling will go to the schools, something like $600 million a year, and therefore we need to have more gambling for the kids. Next, of course, they're setting up legalization of marijuana and numerous other vices in order to generate additional tax revenue. They're already starting to, polls are coming out now showing 90% of the public is in favor of legalizing marijuana. Watch, that's next. Finally, unpaid traffic tickets and unpaid parking tickets, that's been controversial this week, the new collections court that's been set up. The government is also seeking to raise revenue through fines, and they have taken the extraordinary step of actually putting people in jail for not paying them. Now, of course, there's a little more to it than that in terms of they have to refuse to show up for court when they're asked to come in and explain why they don't have the money to pay for fines. But nevertheless, this is disturbing. Putting anybody in jail for, I know what you're saying is you're putting them in jail for contempt of court, for not showing up for court to explain why you didn't pay the fine. But nevertheless, any kind of incarceration for anybody for not paying a ticket is wrong. Next, nonpartisan races. As you know, Suzanne Atwell just prevailed and Terry Turner just prevailed in the city commission races, which is nonpartisan. Several commission races, and the next one we have coming up is in Venice, and judicial races are nonpartisan. What are the roles of the political parties in these local nonpartisan races? Sometimes the parties in the past have stayed completely out, and sometimes they've gotten involved. Sometimes they've gotten involved behind the scenes, sometimes up front. In this particular case, the Democratic Party did step forward and spend some money on behalf of Suzanne Atwell to get her elected, and it worked. The Republican Party, Joe Gruters, chose to stay out of the race and has taken some heat from some Republicans for the loss of Paul Caragiulio. We feel this is wrong. This was a nonpartisan race. The only person to blame for the Caragiulio loss is Paul himself. It is not Joe Gruters. Now, our guest is Jamie Purmort. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ron. Glad to be here. Absolutely.
Jamie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background prior? I know you're involved in insurance now, but before that.
Well, I'm a Sarasota native. I was born here back in 1969, and I attended a variety of schools, from Sarasota Christian School to Cardinal Mooney High School. Ultimately graduated from Sarasota High School in 1987. Went off. Did
you keep getting kicked out or something? Is that why you?
No, just a journeyman student, I guess. And I went from there. I went to college in North Carolina, a little school called Lenore College in Hickory, North Carolina. And after that, in order to maybe see the world and give me some life experience, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Served on active duty for 6 years until I left active duty and came back to Sarasota to work in the family insurance business.
That sounds like a great resume for politics, Jamie. Have you ever thought about running for office?
That's another show, perhaps, Ron. I don't know.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your insurance company?
Well, our insurance agency was founded by my grandfather. We're 50 years old. He moved the family down here after he retired from Central Mutual Insurance Company in Van Wert, Ohio. Saw a need in the community, started the agency. My dad joined on. I bought the agency with a couple other partners in 2004. We call ourselves an all-lines agency. We do personal insurance, commercial insurance, life, health, and we really feel we're an integral part of the community. We're very involved in a lot of non-for-profits and try to give back.
Are you under the umbrella of any big company like an Allstate or a State Farm or anything?
No,
like that?
we're an independent agent. So the companies we choose to do business with are we're not restricted from access to companies. We work with companies that we feel will give our clients the best value for the money, and we place them with the carriers that are going to give them the most protection.
I want to talk a little bit about the crisis that we really have with the homeowners insurance policy, and we're going to start getting into that. But let's talk about Hurricane Charlie for a minute before we go to our first break. How did the landscape change in Florida when Charlie hit?
Well, what Charlie did was it validated a lot of things that we had done since Hurricane Andrew. If we look back to the devastation that Andrew occurred, you had numerous changes to the building codes after that. Those, are tested in a lab and all that good stuff, but you don't get practical data, unfortunately, until another hurricane comes through. And what Charlie did was really kind of provided us a lot of data that these hardening and these strengthening things that have been put in place, such as straps for roofs and other things, impact glass and things of that nature, really worked and really mitigated the damage that the hurricanes can cause. And the ripple effect was that insurers these days now are starting to offer some significant credits for homes and commercial structures that have mitigation devices in place.
What about in terms of rates, though? Didn't rates for property insurance significantly increase after Charlie?
There was, and there was a spike in rates. And that spike, I think, would follow that actuarial data, though. So the spikes that you saw occurred in the structures that were less protected. So the structures that have more mitigation devices in them saw less of an impact than the 1950s homes, the 1960s homes that had been around for quite a while.
I see. What about where the houses are located in terms of on the water, not on the water? Did the ones on the water take a bigger hit?
The ones on the water did. They took a hit, but really it was what it did is define wind-borne debris regions for us. So we were able to see how damage affected coastal versus inland structures. So all that data played into it too. But I guess as a whole, you could say that structures that were on barrier islands or within a mile of the coast that didn't have protective devices saw a significant rate impact.
I guess Charlie also led to the creations of the Citizens Property Insurance Company, and we're going to talk about that and some of the problems that were created as a result of that when we come back from our next break. And by the way, you are not going to want to miss this week's Weasel of the Week, so stay with us.